So we're back here with NASCAR Talk Hot Stove, and a lot of big top stories happening in the course of the last week and a half. Hope everybody had a really good Thanksgiving. And as you can hear, I'm being joined here by a special guest this time on this episode of NASCAR Talk, James Qualls with me. And James, probably the biggest story that's come out, especially in the last week, is the possibility of Dodge returning to NASCAR.
Some people said it probably wouldn't happen, truthfully, I was actually surprised by that news as well, because I thought, when Dodge, announced they were leaving the sport at the end of 2012.
Yep, it was 2012.
So,
yep.
and I was really surprised by that, and what body they're going to pick out for the Dodge. I think, to my opinion, if they do come back, they probably still stick with the Charger. I think. Of course, we've seen, with the NR mods, already a cool body style with the 2050 stuff, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, I mean, 2013, they ended up having the Dodge Charger look. I don't remember if it was for Xfinity or not, but do you think there's a possibility? I mean, we've had the Camaro now down in the Xfinity Series. Do you think we may see something like a Challenger, maybe in the now Monster Cup Series?
That would actually be a pretty good body to have for a Cup. I have the Challenger possibly. Like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing the Charger, back in Cup as well. And there's quite a few Dodge body styles they can use, I think.
Now, a lot of people are really excited that the Dodge is coming back. However, they may not want to be celebrating too soon because it doesn't look like Dodge would come back as soon as 2017, according to Jayski.com. Any manufacturer wanting to come to NASCAR for 2017 would have had to have made a formal request back by September 2015. So this says to me that more than likely they didn't even make a request by September 2016. So we probably wouldn't even see Dodge back in NASCAR until maybe 2019 season.
And I think what's the body of rule for like the Xfinity 5 years, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
So that being the case, though, Dodge is only allowed to run Xfinity 1 more year for the 17 season, and they got 1 more year there. But yeah, you're right though. Dodge ain't. I mean, I kind of figured that myself. That Dodge shouldn't be celebrating too soon because it all goes back to money going back to the how much money the manufacturer is making and what have kind of like the old win on Sunday, sell on Monday deal. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Another
reason why I'm thinking that Dodge may not want to celebrate too soon is after their departure in 2012, we were basically left with 3 manufacturers: Ford, Chevy, and Toyota. And it seems like most teams right now have kind of established themselves of what manufacturer they're supporting. Maybe the wild card, the switch from Chevy to Ford by Stewart-Haas Racing. But still, if Dodge does get back into the sport, are there going to be any teams out there that are going to be willing to test the waters and run Dodges again?
There may be a couple possibly. I think there's some I've seen comment wise they're saying there may be a couple. Some say Richard Petty Motorsports may go back to Dodge. Some say Ganassi Racing may go back to Dodge. But whether that will happen, who's to say? I kind of think there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 teams that could go out on a limb and test the waters. But I think myself.
Well, I went back through the Jayski archives to kind of see if there could be any potential teams that could maybe go to Dodge if Dodge does come into the sport. Now, I don't know. There may be some way they can expedite all the paperwork, get Dodge in as soon as 2018. 2017, I don't see happening. But a couple of teams that were actually approached in January of 2013, surprisingly enough, by Dodge were Furniture Row Racing. Now, obviously, they've pretty much established themselves in Toyotas with Joe Gibbs Racing, so I don't see that happening. Richard Petty Motorsports was one of the teams that they actually did approach as well, and there was a lot of rumors swirling. Now, Richard Childress himself denied that anyone approached him, but there were rumors that Dodge maybe could align themselves with Richard Childress Racing. Now, Richard Childress Racing at the moment in Chevrolets, they've stretched themselves out to help teams like JTG Daugherty Racing, Germain Racing, Levine Family Racing, Circle Sport. With that being said, with them stretching their resources so thin and everything, and pretty much helping out four other teams besides the core Richard Childress Racing team, would that be an organization we could see going to Dodge when they've got themselves supporting so many teams right now that run Chevys?
That could be his own decision. I think Childress wants to go to Dodge. Personally, I don't see Childress going to Dodge myself. Because Chevrolet all this time, probably going back to as far as the '80s, I don't see Childress going. Like I said, it's
I think the one team
first
that I'm only
decision.
seeing that really looks like a big possible candidate, like you said, Richard Childress, or not Richard Childress, sorry, Richard Petty Motorsports, may be going back to Dodge.
Yeah, because that team's been with Dodge. That team was with Dodge. That at the time back when Casey Kane drove for them. I think I don't know, was it he and Allmendinger? I think drove for Dodge in that time.
I think they also had a four-car team at one point with Sorensen, Allmendinger, Sadler, and Casey Kane all in Dodges. So it was like the biggest group of drivers that Richard Petty Motorsports had.
Yeah, and of course, as I said, Ganassi had drove for Dodge. Of course, now they're in a merge with Earnhardt, DEI. I don't see them going back to Dodge. Penske, maybe, but I don't see that happening neither because they're huge on helping the other Ford teams. And of course, the Ford bunch is down on power anyway, except for maybe Joey Logano.
Exactly.
But I think right now I think you probably agree. I think Petty. I think it's the only team I've seen out on going to Dodge if that happens.
What about maybe like a team? I mean, I don't even really know what their plans are for 2017. I'm guessing they're still sticking around, but we haven't gotten any drivers, any updates as far as that's concerned. Maybe like a smaller team, like maybe BK Racing, who's a Toyota team right now. Maybe something like that. Maybe a kind of turn it into a developmental team, if you will. Not only test out younger talent, but also test out a returning manufacturer.
I think that could be possible because they have no resources with anybody right now, so that's a possibility right there.
So, so very possible that we may see some takers if Dodge returns, but
definitely,
in my opinion, I think I'd be very surprised to see a big team bring Dodge back on because, I mean, like we said, the biggest team that they really had was Richard Petty Motorsports. The most productive team that they probably had in the last 10 years was Penske Racing. And now that they've affiliated themselves with Wood Brothers Racing and all of that, I don't see them leaving Ford. So if Dodge does return, the likelihood we're going to see a big name team take on the Dodge moniker, I think, is very, very slim.
Yeah, because the big thing is you don't have to. Big thing is you don't have to be. Is a team that's not affiliated with any other team. As far as a manufacturer's concerned, they don't have to. They can't be alliances with a Chevy team, a Ford team, a Toyota team. Obviously, they're just going to have to be a no resource team. I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Let's move on to some hot stove news that's come out concerning the whole charter situation. And to be honest, I'm a little confused by this one. I've actually been really confused by the whole charter system ever since it came in. But I mean, it is what it is. But Premium Motorsports, number 62 team, they ended up leasing the charter that they had in 2016 to the number 46 of H. Scott Motorsports. Well, obviously, we've heard that H. Scott Motorsports is folding up. Obviously, probably the lawsuit between them and Clint Boyer that probably finished them off for any 2017 plans, even though I heard rumors that they weren't even planning on returning in 2017 anyway. So that 46 charter comes back to Premium Motorsports. They sell it to Erik Jones, number 77 team for Furniture Row Racing, and then they end up getting the charter of the number 15 for H. Scott Motorsports. which I don't rightly understand why when they took one charter that they had already leased to H. Scott Motorsports and sell it to somewhere, why do they then get H. Scott Motorsports number 15 charter? But regardless, now that's another charter that they can possibly sell and lease. But the thing that I'm confused about is you look at a lot of drivers out there that really could use a second charter. Uh, One of them being the number 21 Wood Brothers Racing Ford of Ryan Blaney, a team that we know is able to perform in races, albeit they had some struggles at the end of 2016. But why? My question is, why didn't that charter go to the 21 team? Why did it go to a team like Premium Motorsports? And could we see Premium Motorsports lease out that charter to Wood Brothers Racing?
Choice of the owner. That surprised me really that nobody gave a charter to Blaney's team. You're right about Blaney though. They were solid they were solid really all season long. Just had a lot of bad luck go their way though, and I really do feel sorry for Blaney as far as all that is concerned. Not to mention the whole Wood Brothers team anyway, because that, as you well know, going back to the history, they were one of the premier Ford teams back in the day. But anyway, them going to giving the charter to Erik Jones' team, that really didn't surprise me. As far as I think Erik is concerned, I think they brought him up way early. I think that I would have thought so. Much like how early they brought up guys like Joey Logano, how early they brought up guys like hate to throw one of my drivers' names out, Casey Atwood, those guys, but yeah, way the whole charter trading thing was explained. You know, it's almost like one team got like 4 or 5 charters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it kind of confused me. It kind of confused me too. You know. And yeah, H. Scott Motorsports and Boyer, I don't know what that deal was all about, to be honest. So it's been a crazy week as far as that part of news is concerned.
You know, you brought up an interesting point, and why don't we branch off into this about have they rushed Erik Jones to the Monster Cup Series too quickly? I mean, the same can be said for a number of other drivers that have moved up through the Xfinity Series, that they were moved up quickly, but they have kind of performed. Case in point, Chase Elliott. I mean, he'd spent, I think it was 2 seasons, I think it was, down in the Xfinity Series. Might have even been just 1, and then they moved him up to.
It was 2.
It was 2. Okay, so then they moved him up there to the 24 after Gordon retired. I mean, Chase Elliott performed really well. Almost won a couple of races, had himself in position to maybe pick up his first win of his career, but just fell short a couple of times. Erik Jones, on the other hand, he's also spent 2 years down in the Xfinity Series. So, why do you think that he's being rushed to the Cup Series too soon?
Well, I think that may be my mistake, because I thought he only spent 1 year in Xfinity. Because he had spent a couple. I thought he spent like maybe 1 or 2 years in trucks, and then. So that could be my mistake saying that, to be.
Well, I can actually really quickly look it up and find out here. I'm almost certain that he actually drove the 20 car as well last season. Or no, actually, no.
He did.
Yeah, and trying to see real quickly here. I'm pretty sure that last year was his second season in Xfinity. But just to make sure, let's find out here.
And I think to throw up a point real quick, though, I think as far as Chase Elliott is concerned, he spent 2 in Xfinity, and of course the difference was, I think he, when I first watched Chase, I don't remember what it was, but it might have been all the years I kept up on the Snowball Derby, but I knew then he had the talent behind the wheel, and I knew he would adapt to NASCAR really, really quickly, and when he got the Cup, he was going to adapt to it really, really quickly too. Of course, him having the ride like the 24 really helped him a bunch. And of course, I think Hendrick had his eye on him the whole time in Gordon's late years. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So I'm looking here. He ran looks like somewhere around 11, 12. Okay, he ran about 15 races um, in 2014, and then he flip-flopped between the 20 and the 54 for 2015. I think he missed about 6 races in that season, 6 or 7, and then his first full-time season was last year. So we can theoretically say he's got somewhere around 2 years in Xfinity under his belt.
Yeah. So that was my mistake then. I thought he only spent one in Xfinity. But but yeah, but yeah, Eric's. Now I know for sure I first heard Erik in Snowball when he won that race for the first time in 2012, and I didn't know who he was back then, but that kid's obviously shown he's got talent. Yes, yes, the announcers have kind of wore me out on that name a time or two, but in all seriousness though, he's come on in NASCAR. And I think he's about like Chase, obviously. And I think he's adapted to it really quick too.
And we know that he's going to be going to Furniture Row Racing's second team, which gets a lot of their support out of Joe Gibbs Racing. One question that I got for you is in past history, it seems like when teams try and expand, they try and bring out that second team. More often than not, that second team doesn't really seem to perform that well. Case in point, I said this a few weeks ago, Red Bull Racing. It always seemed like one driver would do really well and the other driver was absolutely terrible. We've got Joe Gibbs Racing, who's obviously been one of the best teams for 2016. All 5 of their drivers, if you count Toyota, Martin Truex Jr., who gets the support from JGR, making the chase for the championship. Do we see Erik Jones being able to take that equipment, like Chase Elliott did with Hendrick Motorsports equipment, and be able to actually put together a really good rookie season in 2017?
I would be surprised if he don't, because I mean, like like I said before, the kid's shown he's got talent, and I I think he'll take that second team and do very well with it. And as far as you said one team performing better than the others. I think everybody here has kind of noticed that, because it's it seems like the leader of the team they give the best stuff to their top drivers. But I think in the case of Joe Gibbs Racing, there's no such thing as their top driver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, Kyle Busch has performed very well. Kenseth, Hamlin. We saw how good Carl Edwards was doing at Homestead, and that made me really mad. I thought, because I was wanting Edwards to pull it off. But anyway, and for the record, my dad and I was on our way to a Kentucky basketball game when that race happened. But anyway, I think Erik. I think he should perform very well. Along with Truex's ride, but on the other hand, I think they. I think it's going to be one of those we'll just have to wait and see when Daytona comes, because I think as far as whether Erik performs well as Truex, but I think he'll perform well with him. I think.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm going to be very surprised if we don't see kind of a 2016 Chase Elliott season out of Erik Jones in 2017.
For sure.
I don't know if we're necessarily going to see Erik Jones, pick up his first win in his rookie season, but I think we're going to see consistency out of him, obviously, like we saw out of Chase Elliott. We're going to talk about... go ahead.
As far as Chase Elliott is concerned, he's going to get his first one in 2017. You heard it here first.
I would have to agree with you on that. I think there's a lot of tracks that we're going to be going to that he'll have learned from things he maybe could have done different. I have to agree with you on that. I think you're right. Chase Elliott is going to be a race winner in 2017. Let's talk about free agents that have been signed, and then we're going to go and kind of talk about some of the rumors of where other free agents may be going. Surprisingly enough, only one driver in the last week and a half has really been officially signed to a team, and that's Landon Castle. He'll be driving the 38 again for Front Row Motorsports. Now, obviously, we know Landon Castle's got a lot of talent. We've seen what he's been able to do at super speedways. He ran well at Bristol.
Yeah, sure. Are you hearing this?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, I don't really see much of an issue with this because I know that Front Row Motorsports, they're not a top performing team, but
Right.
one thing that's always been stressed, especially with the charter system now, is there's not a whole lot of room up in the top tier NASCAR series. And so you basically have to take and find a ride where you can. Landon Castle and that 38 team, they've had a full season to work with each other. Bring them back together and see what they can do in 2017. I think this is actually a good choice, bringing Castle back.
I think so too, and that team front row sports. I think they're. I really don't know much about them other than the course side. I do know I'm still. They surprised us all at Talladega 3 or 4 years ago when you remember Reagan and Gilliland finished.
Yep.
Yeah, I think. But it's like you said, Castle and his team. They had 1 year to work with each other, and they may not have run as well as some of the other teams, though. But I think, but they proved they've been a good fit to each other. Um, I think it's gonna be interesting to watch next year. That team.
And of course, we know that Chris Buescher, he won't be returning to the 34. Buescher's actually going to that second ride for JTG Daughtery Racing. So, there's still that question out there of who could fill in the 34 car. And there's a lot of names out there that are potentials, some of them former drivers for the team of Front Row Motorsports. One of the names out there is possibly David Gilliland coming back full time. Although I think he's kind of in semi-retirement stage. I don't know. David Reagan may be coming back to the 34, and then there's also been talk about possibility of Cole Witt maybe driving the 34 car.
Yeah.
Uh,
As far as the news of JTG Daughtery going, as far as Buescher going to JT, that surprised me too. And Buescher, I think all of us has been known as a Ford guy. That team's concerned, and all the years he's been with Roush, he's been with towards those teams. There's possibilities of some of the all seen him or what are we seeing? Haven't seen him forever and stuff like that. Bear with me, I lost him all those news anyway. So, uh, yeah, Buescher going to JTG Daughtery, that surprised me a bit too. There's been every news that surprised me a lot. So
and
I really don't know much about that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end off this episode of NASCAR Talk Hot Stove with a tweet that actually came out on Tuesday from Casey Mears. There was a lot of actually talk that he was actually going to drive the 33 for Circle Motorsport, but now it's kind of a question of, is that going to be happening, or could we see him going somewhere else? Because the tweet reads, thank you all for the support out there, working on what's next, having fun exploring all options and directions. So apparently, the rumor that he might be going to a Richard Childress Racing affiliated ride in that 33 team for Circle Motorsports, the fact that he's saying he's exploring all options, I mean, there's a couple of rides out there that Casey Mears could slot himself into, and one that I'm actually looking at is possibly the number 44 Ford out of Richard Petty Motorsports.
I think he'd be a good fit with that ride too. Yeah, Mears is one of those drivers. I think he's too darn good to be left out in the cold, if you know what I mean. So, but I think you'll find it. I think you'll find a top ride myself. And 33. I'm not sure about if I can see him in that ride. But the 44 I kind of can, believe it or not.
And let's keep in mind, too, Casey Mears does actually have some experience driving a Ford. Germain Racing actually ran Fords in 2012, 2013. So
For that.
It would be a manufacturer that he at least is somewhat familiar with.
Exactly. He spent the last 3 years with a Chevrolet, and so yeah, he's done Fords, he's done Chevrolets, he's done Toyotas, he's done all three of the manufacturers, so he's got experience with all three of them.
Yeah, that 44 team's got a big question mark on who might fill in that slot. A couple of other names that I want to throw out as possibilities. One of them also comes along with like another question, and that's Greg Biffle. We know that he split with Roush Fenway Racing. A lot of people have been
Yep.
saying, "Oh, he's going to be retiring." Well, we haven't heard anything to that effect. Does that mean that he's still looking for a ride, and could we see him maybe over with Richard Petty Motorsports in 2017?
He might. I don't. I really can't see Biffle with Petty, to be honest. And um, I'm surprised. And I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised Biffle lasted with Roush this long. You know, because every year I thought every year, every end of the year I thought any minute they're gonna let Biffle go and stuff like that. So, but yeah, he might go with a team like Petty, but I really don't know as far as Biffle's concerned.
Well, there's also been another name that's been
And
swirling around out there that I kind of find interesting, and it's interesting too that we were actually talking about the whole did they rush Erik Jones, did they rush Chase Elliott? Because I'm wondering if maybe they might be rushing this driver if the rumor is true. It's right now it's still just rumors swirling, but there's been talk that possibly Ben Rhodes might be coming up to the top tier series, filling that 44 slot. Now, why I would think they'd be rushing him is because he ran partial schedule, 4 races in trucks in 2014. He ran full time in trucks in 2016. And in Xfinity, he only ran, I believe, it was like a total of 10 races in 2015. So he's only got one full season under his belt, and that's in the truck series. I'm not sure that's enough experience to bring him up to a top level tier team like the 44 car, but that's another of the rumors that's actually swirling around out there.
if that's the case, yes, they are making a bit of a mistake, because he hasn't even gotten a season he hasn't even gotten a full season of Infinity in to even at least in my opinion, get a cup ride and stuff like that. Going straight from trucks to if they move him straight from trucks to cup, yeah, that would be a bit of a big mistake, I think.
Trying to
That's
look
bringing
here
him
and
up.
see if they've got him actually listed for an Xfinity ride or not. Because if they do have him listed for an Xfinity ride, I would have to assume that's full time, and more than likely, then that would actually quell the rumors of jumping up to the Sprint, or well, not Sprint Cup, but Monster Cup level now. And at the moment, I do not see him actually listed as a driver with a full time ride in Xfinity. So, I mean, like I said, it's still just rumors, but there is that possibility, and I agree with you. I think that with only one full season last year in trucks, completely skipping over Xfinity, I do not see that as a good decision for
No,
Ben
it's not.
Rhodes. That's rushing him way too quick.
It's not a good decision. To my knowledge, I don't know if anybody's ever done that before, or have to take a driver, him or her, straight over from trucks to cup at all. You know.
I'm not really sure either. I have one possible candidate in mind, and I'm gonna look him up here while I'm doing this. But we're gonna cap off this episode with obviously the news that it's no longer the Sprint Cup Series. It's now the Monster Cup Series, and we may actually even be just calling it the Monster Series because they're talking about taking Cup out of the title. A lot of people like it. A lot of people don't like it. Where are you on the seesaw of that whole opinion?
I may upset quite a few people saying this, but me being a fan of like motocross, supercross, those sports like that as well. Sorry, but Monster Energy only belongs in supercross. You piece of.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I
I
don't know if I'm really all that upset by it. I just kind of find it interesting that some other sponsors didn't step up. I thought there were a lot of other team, or not teams, but other organizations that I think would have fit a lot better because you think about it,
definitely.
Monster Energy I mostly associate them with what goes on in the Xfinity Series. They sponsor Kyle Busch Motorsports, that 54 car, and all that. So, if they were to sponsor the Xfinity Series, okay, that makes kind of sense. They don't really have a whole lot of affiliation with stuff that goes up at the top tier level. Other teams, however, like Coca-Cola was one that I was seeing as a
Buddy
possibility.
joined your channel.
I thought maybe they'd be a top runner. I thought maybe something like Credit One Bank. I mean, obviously they've been doing a lot of stuff. I thought maybe something like that. Names that we actually hear up in the top tier level, I thought would be something that we might see rather than a sponsor that we mostly associate with the Xfinity Series.
Oh, definitely.
And I was just looking
But
to find
I
out
think
if
I
Johnny
think
Sauter jumped from trucks to Sprint Cup, and no, he didn't. No, he spent several years down in the Nationwide Series. So much for that candidate.
But yeah, Monster Energy. I usually associate Monster Energy with extreme sports or something like that. Is what I usually kind of compare them with. Because they seem to be more of an extreme sports sponsor and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, it is what it is. It's going to be the Monster Energy Series regardless. But I saw other sponsors I think would have fit a lot better to be the sponsor for the top tier of NASCAR. But James, I want to thank you for joining me here for this episode of NASCAR Talk Hot Stove. Thank you for your insight, and hope to have you on for a future episode.
I may not have know what's going on though, but effective. So
Hey, everybody's got an opinions, and that's what this show's all about.
exactly.
All right, so thanks everybody for tuning in for this episode of NASCAR Talk Hot Stove. Stay tuned in the future for other episodes that come out where we'll cover more top stories that are happening during the 2016-2017 off season. For James Qualls, I'm Seth Cole, and we will see you guys next time.
Joanna, please come back.